What is the first thing that you think about when someone mentions commodity markets? What is a commodity? Well, commodities are the real deal. They are the real products around this planet that make everyday transactions and economies turn. Basically, they're things like crude oil, corn, cattle, livestock, everything that has a physical substance that people will trade, goods. And commodities are actually used with a lot of traders. Now, in essence, we don't want to physically trade the actual commodity. If you're sitting there at home and you want to be a trader, you've probably never thought, well, I'd like to trade an actual field of corn. It's probably not popped into your head. So how can we take advantage of the commodity markets without actually trading the physical commodity? What we do as traders is that's when we access what is known as the futures market, and we use what's known as futures contracts. A futures contract is quite simple. It's a contract that controls a certain amount of that physical commodity by you putting a deposit on to access that contract. So, for example, a standard futures contract on crude oil will control 1,000 barrels of oil. Do you want 1,000 barrels of oil at your doorstep? Well, let's go one step further. We have a contract and we're trading the actual commodity. Are we trading it for the commodity? No, we are speculating on the price of that market simply by using that futures contract. So we don't want those barrels of oil, we just want to speculate on the price of the oil market. That brings in the next thing with a futures contract. Every contract is the right to make or take a delivery of that physical substance, in this case crude oil. Because of that right, every contract has what's known as an expiration date and a first notice date. Because it is a contract, as a trader, we want to ensure that we enter and exit positions prior to the expiration date and prior to the first notice date. Otherwise, we will end up having a large container load, or in this case, barrels of oil come to our doorstep, which is not what we want. So the commodity markets are fantastic to trade. They trend really, really well because they are impacted by the environmental forces around the planet. When there are crops in season and when things aren't in season, we can take advantage of markets going up and markets going down through the futures market. So in summary, we access commodities using futures. We need to be out of these trades prior to the first notice date, and that's how we access the commodity markets through lifestyle. When we're trading the futures market, we are basically speculating on the price of that market and not for the underlying commodity. You may be wondering though, who actually does trade the futures market for the underlying commodity? Let's take crude oil for example. Crude oil is a great market to trade, and many people around the world trade the futures contracts not just for the actual price speculation, but for the underlying crude oil. A company that does this, as an example, is Southwest Airlines, who are based in the United States. A report in May of 2008 came out and it outlined that Southwest had actually hedged 70% of their fuel prices at a price of $51 a barrel. Now, at the time, the crude oil market was about $120. That means for Southwest, they were able to access the fuel market at less than half the price than all those other airlines. What do you think that meant for their profit and loss? Just to give you an idea of how effective hedging is in real life for the futures market, Southwest saved in 2007 $727 million in costs. That's just to give you an idea that there are companies out there who do trade the futures market for the underlying instruments.